All right, guys, welcome back into the 85. I'm your host, Cole Kmet. This is my co-host, Adam Hogue. Obviously, we have a lot to talk about with the game and how it transpired this past Sunday. We got a cool interview coming up here with Kyle Rudolph for Vikings week, so there'll be a lot to talk about. Adam, how are we doing today?
Doing all right, hanging in there. Obviously, there's been some tough losses here the last 4 weeks, to say the least. As always, the 85 is brought to you by Ankin Law, and if you've been injured, Ankin Law is here to help. Call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal. That's Ankin Law.
So, I mean, I don't even know where to start here. It just feels like, not that this has been expected, but it just kind of, it happens. And, obviously the big thing we'll be talking about the end of the game with the field goal block. And, but I do want to start with some positives with the game, just in terms of how we fought. I thought everybody on the team, I thought we played a really well-rounded overall game. Just the result didn't go our way at the end. But, and look, I hate to say this, but Green Bay is a very good football team. And I thought we came out and played some really good football throughout the course of the game. And whether that was situationally speaking or, putting points up when we needed to. Obviously, there's always areas where we can be better. But all in all, I mean, I thought it was a really good football game. I'm sure it was an entertaining football game to watch for the fans at home. But the result there at the end is obviously what we need to get fixed up, and it's unfortunate that it came down to that. Now we've had, 2 games in the past month where just really unbelievable endings. And, I remember for this past weekend when the kick, it gets blocked, and it's almost like no emotion in terms of how I felt, and just walked off the field and, kind of threw my helmet in the locker, and just really, really emotional then once I got to my locker, and teared up a little bit, and kind of just putting things in perspective. And obviously a tough couple of losses here, but that one really hurts for me. Just obviously me being a hometown guy and going against the Packers and not having won that game yet, and feeling like we really put it all out there and we all played a really good game. And to see Caleb do what he did at the end of the game there in the fourth quarter, put us in position and us to not come out ahead. Obviously, it's a tough pill to swallow, and I know all of our coaches are devastated, players are devastated, and it's a tough one, but, something that we got to be able to move on from. And I think looking back on it, still a lot of positives that we can take, but I think at this point, a lot of us are over the moral victory aspect of things, and we realize that we need to get wins here, and a couple of these games just slip past us. So definitely a tough pill to swallow, but we got to be able to move on here to Minnesota this upcoming week.
Appreciate you sharing that moment, after the game. That's some real stuff right there, and that's actually kind of where I want to start with you. Is just I look, I've been covering this team for a long time. I don't remember a 4-week stretch like this.
Yeah, it's tough.
I can't imagine being one of the players going through with it, because we've been through some crazy times with this team. Certainly seasons that have gone the wrong way, all that stuff. But in terms of the certainly having the Hail Mary and then now the ending like this,
sure,
in a 4-week stretch, sandwiched with, 2 games that obviously, you guys didn't play that great. Like, this has just been a really weird 4-week stretch. So what's it been like for you to try to process this in the last couple of days?
I mean, it's been tough. I was in the weight room the other day, and I don't think TJ will mind me saying this, but we were kind of just looking at each other like, gosh, we've grown up watching this team and, quite frankly, kind of seeing this shit play out at times, and now we're living it. And it's like, oh man, like, this is tough. And you feel like it's such a terrible feeling at times, because you feel like you've done everything and you've put everything into it, and you really thought you put your best effort out there, and you played a really good football game for the most part. And look, they were going to make plays because they're a good football team, and we're going to make plays because we got talent, and we're also, I believe, a good football team. But for it to end like that, it's just it's devastating. And look, it's a game that obviously means a lot to a lot of people in the organization, and for it to just come out like that was just terrible. And but the challenge will be going forward here this week is to kind of take what we did well and really build upon that and continue going forward with that, because I did think that there was a lot of good stuff that we did, offensively speaking, in that game that I think we can carry on going forward.
And I want to get into that. I want to get into Thomas Brown. some of the things that went well. Before we get there, though, the end of the game, were you okay with how that all played out?
Yeah, I mean, I know there's like talk about, okay, do we run another play? And so like, I mean, I'll start at the beginning of the drive. So first we take there's the 2 sacks to start. Caleb has the scramble, finds Rome down the field, and then we get to a 4th and 3, and then throws an unbelievable back shoulder ball, and Rome makes a great catch on the 4th and 3 play, gets us down in that area on their side of the field, and then Caleb does a really good job the following play, recognizing that it looks like they're going to be bringing 0, brings me in for protection, is able to hit Keenan on the out route. So we get that. I think that was like a 12-yard gain. So at that point, now we've crossed the, I guess what you'd call the imaginary field goal line for Cairo.
Call it the magical line they put on TV.
Okay, yeah, like kind of like the first down line that's there but not really there. So you're in a good spot, and they review the play, and we still had the timeout left, right, with however many seconds to go, and we ended up running the football there again to see what we could get. They were loading the box, and then we take it down, called the timeout, and then I'm electing for the field goal. I'm sure you could, and I think Coach has talked about this, like, I think in hindsight, after the field goal doesn't go the way you want it to, you think, okay, we could get closer and all that stuff. And there's definitely other aspects to it where, you have to take into account maybe a negative play, a penalty, whatever it may be. So definitely understand all those scenarios. And those are things that, the coaching staff has to kind of play out in their head and work out. And, I know as players, like, we trust them to make those decisions, and then we go out and execute what we got to do. So that was the decision that they went with. And I think, look, at the end of the day, I'm on that field goal unit. I think we could all say that those are the moments that we work for in our unit, and we just got to do a better job of being as secure as we can up front, and then just the whole operation of it. I think we could just be a little bit cleaner, a little bit better, and I think at the end of the day, you still just, unfortunately, when you look at the film, it's you got to be better here, got to be better there, but I mean, they also made a good play, and I know Coach talked about them sending in the film for that, and I thought they hit Scott pretty blatantly there on that play, which you cannot do, and that's. But we'll see what the league come back with and what they say. But I think there's a lot of it that transpires to it, and I think in hindsight you could say a lot of things of what we could have done differently, but I think at the end of the day, like, the kick just didn't go our way, and the result, and hopefully we can just kind of learn from it and move on from it.
Yeah, a little bit of a teaser. I will be breaking down that idea of whether or not that should have been a penalty at the end of the game.
Okay.
On CHGO Bears, because
nice. I'll have to tune into that.
Because to be honest, after the game I was like, okay, they're never going to call that there. Was it really a penalty? Was it not? Then I did some digging yesterday on the actual rule, especially the pushing part of the rule. Mm-hmm. My opinion, I think it should have been a penalty, but we'll get into that.
And just in the field goal scenario, it is a different type of field goal just because of the situation. Like, I would say in no scenario would anybody ever run a fake field goal in that scenario.
Right, which if you see, they bring the linebacker up. You put all 11 guys on the line of scrimmage. And every other kick the rest of the game, the linebacker's back because you got to guard against the fake.
And so, like, we understand that there's going to be a little bit of a shit kicking that takes place naturally, and that's kind of what we call it, because we're there. We're just having our feet in the ground. Obviously, they're coming forward, coming at us, and so you just have to hold your ground as best you can. And you kind of the motto of it is like die a slow death as slow as you can. And so there's going to be a little bit of a shit kicking that takes place, which obviously happens. But I think that also plays into the scenario of the situation, and in terms of what they're playing for, they're selling all out. There's no of them, thinking, oh, maybe they're going to have, me or Mercedes leak out on a pop pass or something at the end of the game. So that also plays into it as well in terms of the protection aspect of it.
Well, being the veteran long snapper that you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to think back now because obviously I don't have the film in front of me. So just so people know, if the long snapper keeps their head down, they are considered defenseless.
Correct.
You are defenseless until you basically pop up and are in a position to be able to protect yourself. Mm-hmm. So then you get the same defenseless protection that a wide receiver does coming across the middle. All these, there's a whole long list of rules in the rule book of situations where a certain position is defenseless at any given moment. For the long snapper position, that's it. Your head's down, you're defenseless. They are not allowed to hit you in the head, neck, helmet area at all.
Correct.
that's not to say there can't be contact, but when you got thrown in there in London to long snap, did you keep your head down the whole time?
The whole time. Well, because I was reminded before I went in by HT, which he does a good job with, was remember you're defenseless if you keep your head down. So just take up some space. I mean, obviously I'm a bigger guy. I'm bigger than probably the biggest long snap if I were to be in the biggest long snapper in the NFL. So I do take up some space naturally. But no, he just reminded me on that. Like, remember, you are defenseless if you keep your head down, and do as best you can to hold space. But they can't hit you. That's the coaching point on that. And I'll be interested to see what the league comes back with and says on that particular play.
All right, well, let's talk about some of the offense because that part of this game was fun to watch. It was fun to see things look cohesive. Look like you guys got some of a rhythm back. In your own words, what did you feel like Thomas Brown gave you guys, not just in the game, but also just leading up to the game, the change that was made last week?
Yeah, I think he demands a certain standard in terms of the way we practice and the way we operate, and I think guys really bought into that this week, and that became really evident from his first presentation to the team and his first presentation and talk to the offense, and I think guys are really bought in on what he wanted to do. His main thing for the week was getting playmakers the football, and players make plays, and that's kind of what his identity and his thought process kind of went around. And he's a guy that obviously he wants to run the football, and I thought we had a really good balance of run pass, and he's not afraid even on a 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10 to still stick with the run game, and he has a lot of trust in us up front to take care of all that stuff. So it was really cool to see how he operated the whole week, obviously coming in on a short week to make a game plan against a team like that we were going against in Green Bay, who has a very good defense. Put a really good plan together to get guys the ball in space. I thought you saw that with DJ early on, getting him the ball on some of the screens that we've seen in the past, and him doing his thing with the ball in his hands. I thought the run game had a different type of physicality and finish to it than maybe it's had throughout the rest of the season. And really just a buy-in from the whole players on the game plan on that standpoint. And he was direct on what we had to get done and what we had to do, what we haven't been doing well at. And look, at the end of the day, guys bought in, and I think that's why you saw a better product in the field. And I look back at all our drives. I thought all of them were actually really successful drives, and there was a few of them where we're backed up. And whenever you're backed up, the thought process is always it's actually a win to get out past the 20. Like that's what you're playing, because you're kind of playing the field position game. It's very hard to get out of backed up, and I think both times we cleared the 50, or we at least approached midfield on our backed up scenarios. So those were all successful drives. Obviously, we want to do a better job in the red area here and there in terms of putting up touchdowns, especially going against a team like that. But all in all, I thought it was a big step forward for us on offense, and I thought there was a lot of things that we did on Sunday that we can carry on with us throughout the rest of the season.
Is there any figure out how I want to ask this? Is there some human nature to be a little frustrated that change didn't get made earlier then?
In terms of what you saw on the field? Yeah. I mean, I get that. I try not to look back on things and ponder on what if. I think the thing is we made, coach made the decision to make the change now, and I think it looked how it did this past week, and all we can do from here on out is just continue and improve on with it. But again, I thought there was a lot of good things, and I know a lot of guys in the locker room. We love Thomas in terms of how he approaches and his mindset to things, and he's very direct, and he understands what this business is in terms of it being result driven, and but also realizes that to get the results that you consistently want, you have to do the process the right way. And I think that he has a good process about him, and guys have really bought into that. So hopefully we can keep this going forward here in terms of our process, how we handled last week. I thought it was our best week of practice offensively, and we just got to keep taking steps up if we want to reach our true max potential as an offense.
So when it comes to Caleb, you brought up a key play there that I want to talk about, which was right before the field goal at the end. That seemed like a big moment to me watching the game. He recognized what he's seen. He brings in a 7-man protection. You were one of the guys he shifts in. and he seemed to know exactly what he was looking at, where he was going to go with the ball in an enormous moment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, am I overrating that at all, or did it seem like, he really took? It seemed like he took pretty big step forward, especially, compared to how things have been the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think when you consider how things have been the past few weeks, I think it's a great step to see. Him recognizing what defense that they were in and getting to the right play call and play check on it, and just to go out and execute, it was great. I think it's funny. Sam Musfer, who was here, and then I was with him at ND as well. Whenever a play like that happens, it's obviously a very big and good play to make, and especially for a rookie, and we all recognize that. But he would always say, "Yeah, congrats on doing your job," because that's just kind of what's expected. No, but all kidding aside, that was really good to see and really cool to see that executed and happen. And obviously, Keenan ran a great route and made a great catch there. But I think that's what I think is the positives of it is, you're in the fourth quarter, you're got to have it to drive, and we had 2 negative plays to start, and to be able to get in field goal range to go win the game, that's all good stuff, and that's stuff that we haven't done in the past few years that I've been here, and now he's despite what's been going on, Caleb's done it twice, and in the past month, one in Washington and once obviously the other day. So I think those are the positives that we can take going forward, and hopefully just something that we can build upon, but the results got to come with it at some point for sure.
There was a report from Jay Glazer before the game that that Caleb felt the need to get up in front of you guys last week and kind of apologize for his role in Shane Waldron getting fired.
Mm-hmm.
Flus acknowledged on the radio yesterday too that happened. I'm just curious from your perspective what that meant to you guys, what kind of impact you think that had. Was it necessary? Just your reaction to that happening?
Yeah, I don't think I ever expect things like that, and I don't want to go full into what he had to say, but I think it's really mature of him to do something like that, especially as a rookie. I think he understands, and if he didn't, I think now for sure he does, who he is to this organization, who he is to this city, who he is to this team, and that's just the nature of being a starting quarterback in the NFL in a major media market. And he understands the responsibility placed on him and the magnitude of his position. His position is responsible for a lot of people's livelihoods, and that's just the nature of the quarterback position. That's why they get picked number 1 overall. That's why they get paid $60 million a year. That's why the position is the position. There's a lot on your shoulders, and he embraces it all. And it was cool to, see him take ownership of things that, maybe he didn't really necessarily need to, but I think he understands that if it's not right, he's got to be the one to make it right, because he's the quarterback and he's the number 1 overall pick and he's that guy. He's got to be that guy. And that's what the dudes at that position, that's what they do. They make it right when it's not all right. And I think he had a great approach to this week. And it was cool to see him go out there, operate at a high level. I thought it was his cleanest game in terms of being and those are things that you guys don't see, but being in the huddle and being engaged in terms of, the motion, the alignments and all those things, having a good mastery of the game plan. And I thought that's why he played so well on Sunday. And then I think I said after the game, when it's time to go be the number 1 pick, he was the number 1 pick and got us in field goal range there to win it. And, I just heard – I heard for him, not being able to get that win for him, because I thought that would have been a cool moment as the Chicago Bears quarterback driving down to go win the game against the Packers. And unfortunately it didn't happen, but I'm confident that there's going to be plenty of those Caleb Williams moments, especially against the Packers, here to come over the next few seasons.
Well said. Now let's turn the page. It seems like every week this has been kind of hard to do with just the way that's been going. But another opportunity this week against another NFC North rival, the Minnesota Vikings, who have been having a really good season. So we're going to talk about all those things, and I'm excited about this guest that we have on the show this week, because I've had a chance to interview Kyle Rudolph a couple times over the years. He's one of the just a super awesome dude to talk to all the time, and perfect guest for Bears and Vikings. So We'll have that coming up next. But first, we got to thank a couple sponsors here on the 85. For over 25 years, Ankin Law has helped thousands of clients in Chicago and across Illinois get the compensation they deserve for their injuries, auto, truck, rideshare, medical mistakes. Ankin Law is here to help and is one of the largest filers of workers' compensation cases in the state. When it comes to commercials, Ankin Law has been aligned with Chicago sports for over a decade, especially local Chicago athletes such as Io DeSumo, Nicky Lopez, Chris Chelios, and needless to say, number 85, Cole Kmet. Call 312-6-MILLION. Injury law made personal. That's Ankin Law. And the 85 is also brought to you by Circus Sportsbook. Whether it's pro or college, the app to bet football is Circus Sports Illinois. Circus Sports, it's sports betting the way it should be. Circus Sports Illinois has high betting limits, low holds, and exceptional customer service. Bet on all your favorite teams in every game this season. Spreads, props, futures, or in-game. Circus Sports has it. Fund and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime in Illinois. Download your new bookie today at circusports.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Well, welcome in the podcast, a friend, a fellow Notre Dame alumni, Kyle Rudolph. I appreciate you for joining in for Vikings Week for us. Well, first of all, man, I got to ask, how has retirement been?
Retirement's going good, man. It's been an interesting transition for me. I think like as a kid, you have all these dreams and, we're fortunate enough to achieve those dreams and get the opportunity to play in the NFL. And then when you're in the NFL and playing in the NFL, your main focus is how do I stay here as long as possible? You always have the development meetings and the counselors tell you, hey, let's prepare for life after football. And you're like, why would I prepare for life after football? Because if I take time away from preparing to stay in football, I'm just going to accelerate that timetable relatively quickly. So for me, like early in my career, it was just all about staying, all about, earning my spot, establishing myself in the league. You always want to get to that second contract. And then for me, realistically, like about halfway through my career, I started to have other interests and to start to get involved in different things. And I think that's kind of what led me to going right into the next chapter for me after 12 years in the NFL. And I've been fortunate to have a couple of things that, keep me around sports and music and entertainment and things that I love and philanthropy. And so, being able to start a fundraising platform, which is now what I do on a daily basis, it's helped me with the transition greatly because I put the same time, effort, energy, and attention into AllTrue, the fundraising platform that I started, that I did preparing for the Bears on a game week. So, to me, that's really helped my transition because I think oftentimes guys struggle the most when they don't have something that ultimately like kind of pulls them out of the game of football. More times than not, the game of football is taken away from us before we're ready. And, guys either, their bodies break down or ultimately the phone stops ringing and you're kind of on the outside looking in. And for me, I felt very fortunate my first year out. I kind of lost track. It's like, oh, OTAs are going on, or like, oh, it's training camp. Oh, there's games on TV. Like you live in this bubble while you're playing in the NFL, and the rest of the world is completely irrelevant to what you're doing on a Tuesday in a game week, or what you have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And now that you're on the other side, it's fun, it's enjoyable for me, but realistically, I'm just very fortunate that I had something else that has really kind of pulled me out of my career as an active player.
So what advice would you give for guys, so maybe, first, second year, third year guys who are in their second or third year deals, guys who are closer, maybe towards the end of their career? How would you give advice to each one of those groups in terms of how they should approach life after football and what they should be thinking about, whether it's on an off day or in the off season, in terms of finding those type of interests that you were talking about?
Well, I think everyone kind of knows, what is your individual capacity. And, it might not be during the season, because during the season, you're completely focused on, recovering your body, preparing for games, doing the best you can to be ready to go out on Sundays and play at a high level. Because, that's kind of what I joked around with our player development guy in Minnesota, who I had a great relationship with, in Les Pico. And I used to joke with Les all the time, as a 21-year-old rookie, 22-year-old second year player. I'm like, I appreciate the advice to, start preparing for what's next in life after football. But as a 21-year-old, as a 22-year-old, uh, so much of this is new, and I'm just trying to figure out what my routine is now to stay here as long as I can and to set myself up to have success in this league. Then our conversation shifted. As a 25, 26-year-old, I know what my routine is on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis throughout the course of the year. And I felt like once I established my routine for football, it really allowed my capacity to figure out what else I'm interested in, to get excited about other things outside of football. And for me, ultimately, that's where, I learned that I had this, huge desire for philanthropy, and to help other people who want to not just make a difference, but leverage their platform to make a difference. And, yeah, you do those sorts of things when you're playing. And on Tuesdays for us, we would always go visit the Children's Hospital in Minnesota. Or, if one of my teammates was having an event, I would go to one of those events. And those are things that you can do. But ultimately, I found myself thinking, like, okay, now I'm an older player in this locker room. I have younger guys coming up to me asking me questions like, hey, what do you think about this? Or I want to do that. What's the best way to go about it? So really trying to, pass my experience on to other guys throughout the course of the locker room has really turned into what I now do on a daily basis for other athletes, entertainers, musicians. And I never would have found that if I didn't kind of branch out outside of my normal weekly protocol of, all right, it's Monday, I need to get my body back from the game yesterday. Now Tuesday I have this, Wednesdays first and second down, Thursdays third down, Friday red zone. Like, that's our life for 17 weeks in the playoffs. But I felt like, as an older player, not that I started planning for what was going to happen after football, but I started to develop interest and understanding of other things that I really enjoyed. And then I just turned it into what I want to do all the time post football.
And do you think when your career started coming to a close there at the end, like, do you think you were ready for that, or was that did that still kind of hit you? I'm sure, I know you were saying that you found other interests, but did that still hit you once it happened?
No, I think for me, like, again, I was very fortunate to have played as long as I did, and ultimately be able to sit down with my wife and make a decision that, although there's options and the phone hasn't stopped ringing, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm more excited about other things than moving my family for the fourth time in 4 years and going to play on another team. And so for me, literally, I remember, I was in California. We had just, the company All True that I started in 2021 when I was still an active player. We had four co-founders and an intern. We were scaling to almost 10 full-time employees, and we're meeting with these employees that we hired in Southern California. And it was March of 2023. So free agency was kind of in the heat of things. Murph, our agent at Athletes First, kept calling me, hey, I'm talking to this team, I'm talking to that team. And it was kind of just all in the background for me. I was like, yeah, that's cool. Like, a couple opportunities that, might have been interesting for me. I'm like, yeah, you just do your thing and let me know. And ultimately, I went home from a full day of meetings in LA with all these new employees. I picked up my phone, I called Murph, and I was like, you can tell every team that we're talking to, I'm done. I'm more excited about the growth of this company and the opportunity to, like, take this to the next level than I am to go be tight end for the Vegas Raiders or the Cincinnati Bengals or whoever it was that we were talking to at that time. And he was like, are you sure about that? Like, he never really saw me as someone that would tell him, like, hey, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And for me personally, I had never really thought about it either. Because as I said, when we kind of first started talking, I never thought about the end. Like, you always think about what the dream is and chasing the dream and fulfilling the dream and staying in as long as you possibly could. But for me in that moment, like, I knew right away. I was like, it's time for me to be over. And I think that's what's allowed me over the last you know, season and a half to be able to watch football and enjoy football and be around the game in a small capacity with some of the broadcasting stuff that I've done to where now I can just enjoy being on the other side. I don't have any resentment for the game of football or desire to still be out there.
That's pretty cool. Talking with some football stuff, what do you think from your experience, from you now watching the game, why do you think it's such a difficult transition for a lot of guys at our position going from college to the pro level at such an early stage?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest transition is that, offenses are starting to evolve to more of the college style where you don't have to put your hand in the ground and block, defensive ends and outside linebackers like I did when I got to the NFL. And it was Julius Peppers and Israel Adonijah and Clay Matthews and Willie Young and Cliff Averill and like all these dudes that like at Notre Dame, I wasn't seeing guys like that line up from across from me. And, the most of the time, I wasn't a great blocker in college, but, I was big and strong enough to kind of get in the way long enough. And, I had some really good tight end coaches over the course of my time at Notre Dame. And it was like, run blocking for us is spacing and timing. And if you just hold enough space long enough so the back can get through, it's a win. We're not interior offensive linemen that have to like drive dudes off the ball and do stuff like that. But when you get to the next level and you're expected to be out there first, second, and third down, and you want to be a guy who can be counted on in every situation of the game, it's a lot harder than, hey, we're going to put you out there on first and second down, but you're just going to run a flat route or a quick slant and we'll run an RPO and you don't have to touch anyone. No, you need to cut Julius Peppers off on the backside when he's lined up in the C gap. And oh, by the way, the ball's probably going to bend right back to you, and you're at the point of the tack. You're not on the backside of the play. So I think that's the biggest thing. You see some of these young tight ends that just get embarrassed in the run game. That offensive coordinators have to figure out, like, okay, I need to keep him on the field because he can't just go in every time it's a pass. And if we're going to have any bit of unpredictability, like he has to be out there on first and second down, and we have to be able to run the football. So I think that's the biggest transition. In the pass game, I don't necessarily, I think once you get the speed of the game, which, for me, the transition from high school to college and then college to the NFL was really no different. Like I remember my first 7-on-7 at Notre Dame. I'm like, man, I'm never going to catch a ball in college football. Like, this is just too fast. Like, I cannot, things are moving too quickly. Like, I'll never get open. I don't know, up from down, left from right. And then the next 7-on-7, it's like, oh, things are starting to slow down a little bit. And then, like, by training camp that summer, you start to get more comfortable. Then you play some games and you figure it out. The NFL was the same way. I didn't have an off season as a rookie. It was straight into training camp after the lockout, much like you coming through the pandemic off season. Like you're just dropped into an NFL training camp, and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm never gonna catch a ball in the NFL because as soon as I think I'm open, I'm like getting smacked by a safety or a linebacker, and it was zoned, and I probably should have sat in that window. Instead, I ran right through and got my head taken off. But the speed always slows down in the pass game. So I think the biggest thing is just the physicality at the point of attack in the run game.
So how did you feel like your game evolved from like say year 1 to year 6, and then from year 6 to your final year in year 12? Like how did those kind of stages go for you in your
career? For me, I would say the biggest evolution of my game was going from a liability pass blocking, run blocking to being someone who could be counted on and someone that was viewed as one of the better blockers at our position later in my career. Ultimately it was something that I had to do. Playing in Minnesota with Adrian Peterson and Dalvin Cook, we had a bunch of really good backs up there over the years, even Latavius Murray, Jerick McKinnon. We were going to run the football. And if I didn't figure it out, I wasn't going to play. And it was something that, for me, the pass game, I kind of joke around when I talk to people about the pass game, like you can't lose something you never had. And I've never been fast in my life. So like speed was never a part of my game. And ultimately I think guys that come into the NFL and it's like, hey, they're a speed guy, they're a quickness guy. Like year 1 and year 10 is going to look a lot different. Like at year 10, when you're in your mid 30s, you're not going to be as fast and quick as you were when you were in your mid 20s and you got in the NFL. And so for me, from the pass game standpoint, like, yes, in year 10, year 12, I was still bigger than everyone that I was going against, whether it be a linebacker or safety. So my skill set really never changed. But I felt like my game evolved because I got so much smarter. I was able to recognize situations, recognize coverages, understand tendencies a lot more because early in my career, I was just worried about what the hell I had to do on the play that was called for us on offense. And then by the time I like got my stance and realized that, okay, I got to run this route, like, oh, the ball was already gone. And year 6, year 10, you hear the play call in the huddle, like what you have and your responsibility is kind of second nature. Now you get to the line of scrimmage and I'm looking at, okay, do I have a 6 technique that I got to get around, or do I have a wide 9? I'm playing the Detroit Lions and I basically have free access into the secondary. Who's covering me? Are they matching me in zone? So it's a zone coverage, but really this Mike linebacker has me one-on-one in quarters and I can go wherever I want against him. I'm not going to just sit here. So I think for me as a player in the pass game, all of that understanding of coverages and schemes, it helped me a ton to still be productive. I year 7, 8, 9, even year 10, that as I was in year 1, 2, and 3.
All right. So before we let you out of here, you talked about one of the biggest hits you've ever took. And I don't know if you knew this, but Lance Briggs actually does a show on this with ALLCITY and CHGO. Steven, do you have the clip of Briggs? Okay, Steven's gonna pull up a clip here real quick of his reaction after you had said that.
I both forgot the whole damn game.
Listen, we're years removed from the league now. We're years, I have a lot of respect for Kyle. One of the things about that play, because he actually mentioned that when I was on the top 100, when I was, I think it was my lowest number, like 20, I don't know, 23, 25, somewhere around there. It was for the NFL top 100. That was, Kyle, they interviewed Kyle, and when he talked about it, he said, no, like, I've never been hit as hard as Lance Briggs, and they showed the clip. So what happened was, when you break down your opponent, when they get into the red zone, when Vikings get into the red zone, Kyle Rudolph gets the ball. I mean, it goes from like 20% chance of him getting the ball to like 85 because they were throwing it to him in the red zone all the time. He was scoring a lot of touchdowns for him. So as soon as we get into the red zone, I know based off of this formation, he's coming across the field. Now, what I was really good at doing was not allowing people to know that I was going to hit him. So I'm looking at the quarterback, but I can see him out of the corner of my eye coming. I know the route. I look at him. I know exactly the path that he's coming on. Mm-hmm. Oh, as he gets close, I'm still looking at the quarterback, right? So as he gets close, I'm looking at the quarterback, and I lean into it and get. I mean, I'm telling you, when you feel the, right? I'm all of that. I felt, it was a solid hit, and after I hit it, I'm still looking at the quarterback. I'm moving to where the ball is going.
So just your reaction to that, and then maybe a favorite Bears-Vikings memory from your career.
Oh, no, I mean, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. For me, I was a second-year player in the league, and Lance had been in the league for double-digit years, multiple, Pro Bowls over the course of those years. And, like his understanding of football as opposed to mine, like, hey, I knew I had a shallow cross on that play, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, Lance looks like he's dropping in zone, so now I'm going to turn and get my eyes back to the quarterback and let him know, like, I'm ready for the football. Well, if he would have looked me up and I knew he was matching me, I would have been more aware that this guy's going to come knock my head off if I don't pay attention. And it really shows the understanding of a guy who had been in the league for 12, 13 years, as opposed to me in my second year, just trying to figure out, okay, like I got the shallow cross, I got to clear it out for the receiver that's outside of me on the Z. It looks like he's dropping in zone, so now I'm not worried about him anymore because he didn't come play me and match me in man. And no, it was, I think about those Bears teams that we played against in 2011, 12, 13, with Lance Briggs and Brian Urlacher, Peanut Tillman out on the outside. I already talked about Israel and Pep on the edges. Like their defense, they were monsters. And we had a ton of battles with the Bears over the years. And I think it really kind of applies to the game this weekend. Records go out the window. Like it doesn't matter if a team is 10-2 or 2-10 when the Bears come to Minnesota and play at US Bank Stadium, or when we go to Chicago and play at Soldier Field. Records go out the window. And Soldier Field was a place that I did not have a lot of success at throughout the course of my career. I think we won like 2 or 3 times over my 10 years in Minnesota. And early on, like there were a lot of times the Bears had much better records than we did. And then the later half of my career, with the exception of maybe a year, we had better records than they did. But for me, it was the coolest part about the Vikings Bears, particularly at Soldier Field. You could throw records out the door, like they don't matter whatsoever. It was a game that was always a close one, always went down to the wire.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, my man. Should be a good one this weekend for us. Like you said, records kind of get thrown out the window with these type of games, so I'm looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun, and hopefully the Irish can keep it going here and sneak in the playoff and make something happen.
Yeah, we got 2 games to take care of. I don't think they can afford to drop either one, so we'll go up to New York City this weekend and take care of Army, and then it's always fun to go out to Southern California and get a win in the Coliseum the week of Thanksgiving. It's actually funny. It brings me back to that Lance Briggs story. After he knocked me out on the field, it was the Sunday after the USC Notre Dame game. And I got every concussion. I said this at Barstool, and they were asking me about the hit. I got every question wrong imaginable. Who were playing, what month it was. Like it was embarrassing. But then I got to the locker room and like I saw my Notre Dame gear like hanging in Everson Griffin's locker and Matt Khalil's locker, and it like sparked my memory right away. I'm like, oh yeah, like it was just Thanksgiving. Notre Dame beat USC last night. We were watching the game, and I like ran back into the training room, and I'm like, it's November. Like I remember we're playing the Bears, and they were like, yeah, just hit the showers, bro. Like you're done. Go sit next to your boy Harrison Smith, who got knocked out in the first half.
Oh, geez. That's hilarious. That's a good tidbit. Well, thanks, Kyle, man. I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon here.
Likewise. Have a good one. Not too much luck this weekend, though, brother.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
Hey, ComEd can help businesses save money by becoming more energy efficient. The Energy Efficiency Program can help find up to 35% in energy savings. So what does a business have to do? Just sign up for a free facility assessment at ComEd.com/biz. So why aren't more businesses doing it? Well, maybe they just forgot the website. ComEd.com/biz. ComEd.com/biz. Terms and conditions apply. Offers are subject to change. Actual savings will vary by customers' energy usage and rate. The ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is funded in compliance with state law. And the 85 is sponsored by Chicago Sports Network, the new home of the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox. CHSN will broadcast more than 300 live games per year across the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox, and will feature a full lineup of original Chicago-focused sports content. They're also Chicago-based, Chicago-built, and Chicago to the core, and they're bringing it to every corner of Chicago across our 77 neighborhoods and beyond. At CHSN, Chicago comes first. Visit chsn.com for more info on how to watch Bulls, Hawks, and Sox games all season long.
All right, good stuff there from Kyle. I think interesting. I like when he's talking about, life after football stuff. I think part of the reason why I wanted to do things like this, just to kind of, see what your interests are and what you might be good at in terms of what you can carry on going forward. I know I want to stay connected to the game as long as I can, and I won't be able to play forever, and I definitely don't want to do those coaching hours. So I was like, I got to find some way to stay connected, and I think stuff like this is kind of a cool way to do it, and we'll see where it goes going from here on out. But it's cool to hear him talk about that stuff. I'm happy that he's kind of finding his niche after life in football.
Yeah, no, that was honestly super interesting to hear from, just kind of the transition that he went through, kind of realizing, I got to start thinking about some other things. And all of a sudden one day it just sort of hit him that he was done.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
So, a couple of interesting things about Kyle Rudolph. Kyle Rudolph caught Tom Brady's last regular season touchdown pass.
Okay, that's sweet.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think he had more in the playoffs, but
that's cool.
The last regular season touchdown pass Tom Brady ever threw was caught by Kyle Rudolph. Also, when you were coming out of Notre Dame, my comp for you was Kyle Rudolph. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, big, Notre Dame, tight end, and white. So
I was going to say that was going to come up for
those
sure.
Those are the four. Yeah, I guess that all lines up. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean.
No, I'm just messing with you. Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna lie. That obviously happens when you're doing draft prep. You're like, yeah. Okay. Same school, all that.
Yeah.
You also, I felt pretty confident you're gonna be a second round pick.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was second round pick. But also, just look at that point, I'd covered. So it's 2020. That ended up being his last year in Minnesota. He had already been there. He was going into his 10th year. With the Vikings, we had seen him twice a year. Every season I'd covered the Bears.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, this is and at that point he'd become a really good blocker.
Mm-hmm.
I would say maybe that was one difference. I feel like you were probably considered a little bit better of a blocker coming out.
Yeah, definitely. I know not in the media circles, but when I met with coaches at Combine and stuff, they were pretty impressed with my blocking coming out as a young guy. Still had a lot to work on, but they were like, no, you'll be able to do this pretty quickly, but it'll take you a couple years, but they liked what they saw in terms of the blocking.
But the point being, not being a one-dimensional tight end.
Sure, yeah.
Which both you and Kyle, in my opinion, obviously do both really well. And, again, I'd probably say he said it there in the interview too. Speed was never his game.
Yeah. I wouldn't say speed's my game. I think I'm a little faster than Kyle, but Kyle's also a little longer than I am too. If you ever meet Kyle in person, he's got his arms go down to past his knees. It's crazy stuff. And he's obviously a very tall and big guy. But no, I liked what he had to say. I thought it was cool what he said when he was mentioning his speed. Is that all the guys that come out that are when they're super quick twitch and they got that speed early on,
you lose that.
You do lose that at some point. And I think how Kyle plays, how I play, when you kind of look at that type of style, I think it's more sustainable over the long haul where you can do it for 10, 12, 15 years, just because your play style doesn't have to change as much. So I think that's a positive for me going forward if I want to continue to last playing the NFL. But yeah, some guys obviously if you just rely on your speed and your quickness, at some point that does begin to fall off.
Yeah, no, that was another very interesting thing he said. I have a lot of respect for Kyle Rudolph.
Oh, me too.
Just all those years watching him. So that comp was all based in.
That's a total compliment. I love Kyle. I remember watching Kyle growing up. One of my favorite players to watch, and a guy that I definitely look up to, and it's cool to see what he's doing now, and I just have a lot of respect and admiration for. So that was a cool interview for me.
All right, so Vikings this week.
Yeah.
We got to talk keys to the game, which are always presented by Circus Sports. Download the Circus Sports Illinois app at circusports.com/Illinois-app.
Yeah, so keys for us, well, obviously Vikings D, Brian Flores is going to bring a lot of different looks, so that's something that we got to be prepared for. It'll be obviously a big challenge for Caleb. First time, I'm sure Brian Flores will be bringing a crap ton of looks to confuse Caleb, probably some unsound stuff that we got to be able to take advantage of here and there. But so it'll be interesting to see what kind of game plan he brings to us that we got to be able to react to. We'll obviously take some look at some things on film to see some tendencies, but Brian Flores has a good mix of things, and those are all things that I've experienced in the past. So that'll be the challenge for us, is handling all those type of things in terms of what they bring at us on Sunday. Defensively, I know those guys are still working on shoring up that run game on the inside and all that, and making sure that we stop the run, and then just teams obviously being good and explosive in the kicking game and all that type of stuff. And but the main thing for us on offense is just being able to handle all those different looks and just build upon what we did this past Sunday.
Obviously, that puts a lot of stress on the quarterback. We've seen this, since Brian Flores got to Minnesota. As a tight end, though, how does it put stress on you? Knowing that, because you got to figure that, you got to sort all that out too.
Yeah, well, I'll be interested to see, because we haven't installed our base plan yet, which we do on Wednesdays. But in terms of what protections that we got in, because I got different rules based on the protection schemes that we have, and I might be blocking an end here, or I might be blocking a DB body there based on the certain protection looks. If they give us an all up 8 up front, how are we going to handle that this week? So those are all things that we'll go over starting tomorrow, and we'll really get dialed in with. But yeah, there's a lot that can happen in terms of whether I'm in protection, I'm hot on a route, whether I'm chipping and getting out and having to get my eyes around quickly, adjusting the routes. So there's a lot that goes into it when you get these funky defensive looks. But with the funky defensive looks, I think comes a lot of opportunity for explosive plays as well, because by nature, they can be unsound at times.
So that kind of brings me full circle to some of the stuff we were talking about earlier with Thomas Brown, because communication is obviously key in sorting all that out. It seemed like communication was better last week. It seemed like calls were coming faster. Great. It seems like everything across the board was smoother. We had this discussion last week about Thomas Brown coaching upstairs instead of downstairs. I'm wondering, as a player down there on the field, how does that impact you? Do you even notice it?
I don't, no, because I really only interact with my tight ends coach. Okay. So I'm everything that his name's Jim Dre. Anything that Jim gets is through the headset, and he's getting from whether that be Flus or it's from the OC or from another position coach, and they're all kind of dialed in on the radio waves there. And I'm getting my Gatorade or taking a sip of water on the bench, and he kind of helps us relay those messages. And but I thought it was great. I mean, I got to the sideline, it was boom. I had the iPad up like we usually do with Jim, and he's going over some of the things that we had and maybe some of the adjustments that we had to make on certain plays and whatever looks that they were showing. And then right after that, it was into, hey, these are the plays that are going to be that we got up that are coming up here for this next drive. So we were on it like that, and you can kind of prepare yourself mentally for what plays might be coming up, and take a look again at the iPad to see, okay, we had a similar formation on this past drive. How am I going to block this up? How am I going to run this route? So I thought that led to really good execution on offense for us, and you could tell Caleb was getting the play call immediately after a play was over, and there was no hesitation with the play calls, and I thought that was all really good to see, and I thought that's why the operation was much cleaner than it has been.
Yeah, just an observation for myself, because I know you couldn't see this during the game when they kept showing Thomas upstairs.
Did you see the clip of him when
he freaked out and he scored?
That was awesome. That was cool. I saw that after. I was like, that's sweet. That's sweet. Yeah, that was cool.
That was cool. But before that, every time, because obviously they showed him a lot given the storyline.
Yeah.
But he was just so calm.
Yeah, that's how he just flatlined.
I mean, it was regardless of what the play was, good or bad, it was just, you could tell he was just on to the next thing, boom, boom, boom. And then there was just that explosion when you guys scored.
Which is awesome. That's how I'll talk to you, because it'll be I'll go, whether I go up to him about a route or a pass or a run scheme or whatever it is, and you ask him, or I'll be like, hey, I felt this here. He's like, and it'll just be like, no, you got it off your 4-step. off your 4-step. Like, it's just very direct. And like, as a player, you can appreciate that because it's so direct and it's just to the point on what you have to do. And there's no gray area about it. So he's to the point on stuff. He's direct about it. But when it comes time, man, does he show a lot of passion? And that was cool to see that little clip of after we scored.
All right. Well, hopefully there's more opportunities for that passion to come out this week.
Yeah.
Keep the offense head in the right direction and get that, first NFC North win of the season as well. Good stuff.
Great stuff. Yeah, this was a good one. Yeah. We'll move on here from Green Bay and on to Minnesota we go, and we'll talk about it all next week on the 85.
Which is powered by Aiken Law. Injury law made personal. They're here to help. Visit aikenlaw.com to learn more.